Here, we would like to proceed with the next agenda, the special address by Mr. Tshilidzi Marwala, Rector of the United Nations University and the Under Secretary General of the United Nations. Mr. Marwala, please.
Konnichiwa. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Kanda, Masato, thank you very much for that exciting presentation. That raises many, many good things. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I have a great pleasure to address you here at the Think7 Japan Summit, the official engagement group of the G7, under the theme Addressing Crisis, Reigniting Sustainable Development, Bridging the G7 and G20. We are facing an urgent and interlinked global crisis, including the war in the Ukraine, economic instability, debt, climate change, and environmental pollution, energy and security, health and education. To address this crisis, we must revitalize action for the Sustainable Development Goals through new and innovative approaches. We must promote a just transition in energy and food systems, industrial structures, and labor markets to reduce trade-offs and enhance the synergies between climate change, economic growth, and social stability. We must reform the global financial architecture by ensuring that we identify new risk models to support small nations and from global shocks to bring the informal economy into the formal economy and to attain sustainable development goals. We must understand the impact of emerging technologies such as blockchain technology and their impact on global finance, financial inclusion, and their impact on the environment. One of the mandates of the United Nations University is to bridge the gap between researchers and policymakers in the global south and global north. I will raise a few key points I would like the delegates here to consider in this regard. First is the role of artificial intelligence. AI will play a critical and disruptive role in global labor markets over the coming years. But there are serious concerns about the impact it may have on gaps between the developed and developing countries due to unequal access to digital infrastructure, technologies, and training. We need to understand the impact of this technology on the world of work and to understand whether it is going to narrow the gaps or it is going to widen the gaps. But I think it depends on what we do. It is the choice that we will have to make so that this technology can be as inclusive as possible. We also must consider the potential use of AI for unethical purposes, such as in crime and conflict. The weaponization of technology will necessarily disrupt economic activity and result in greater poverty. It is therefore imperative that we develop international regulations and norms for the ethical use of AI that can promote sustainable development, de-escalate conflict, and create more equal societies. Secondly, is education for sustainable development. You must enhance education for sustainable development to harness the potential of education for achieving sustainable development goals and building more sustainable societies. This involves interventions at every level, from policy making to building the capacity of educators from the primary levels all the way to tertiary level. What does this mean in practice? Children and adults need to be empowered with the knowledge that allows them to take action on issues of sustainability. Legislators need to reorient national education curricula to focus on sustainable development, and educators need sufficient training and skills to impart this knowledge. Thirdly, one of the key messages of this summit, which is one of the key messages of this summit, the importance of leveraging the G7 and T7 summits to bridge the gap between the developed and the developing world. United Nations University is actually the only UN agency with headquarters in Asia. And it is headquartered here in Japan and consists of 13 institutes located across the world, focused primarily on education, research, and capacity building on issues related to sustainability. For example, we deal with technology in Macau, global health in Malaysia, economic development in Finland, human and environmental security in Bonn in Germany, material fluxes in Dresden in Germany, e-governance in Portugal, natural resources in Ghana, regional integration in Belgium, biotech in Venezuela, policy in New York, and water in Canada. And these are issues that are absolutely crucial for us to be able to attain sustainable development. So therefore, we are committed to realizing a peaceful and sustainable world by generating solutions to global crises and empowering youth who will become the next generation of leaders with the skills and knowledge to achieve sustainable development goals. Just yesterday, I had at the United Nations headquarters in New York one of the reports that was generated by United Nations University, the so-called High-Level Advisory Board on Effective Multilateralism, which was co-chaired by the former president of Liberia, Ellen Sirleaf, Johnson Sirleaf, and the former Prime Minister of Sweden, where the United Nations University played a critical role. And this is very, very important as we move in this world that is increasingly becoming complicated and fragmented. You need a neutral party that is not necessarily associated with a single member state to be able to generate knowledge so that the absorption and adoption of that knowledge can be as easy as possible. And of course, within this 13 institute, I'm going to single out the Institute of Advanced Study that is led by Professor Yamaguchi, who is here with us today. And this institute actually addresses the core issues that are under the theme of this summit, the issue of sustainable development. The research in this institute ranges from decarbonization of energy systems, biodiversity conservation, monitoring and evaluation of the SDGs, and youth empowerment and training through master's and PhD programs on sustainability. The majority of our students and researchers in Tokyo originate from the global south, and many return to their home countries to take up positions as academics, researchers, and policymakers. The United Nations University considers such capacity building as key to bridging the G7, G20 gap. UNU Institute of Advanced Study is participating in the T7 as part of Task Force 2, focused on well-being, environmental sustainability, and just transition. We need to consider a wide range of questions from how developing countries can decarbonize in a just manner while maintaining sustainable and equitable economic growth, to the role that G7 countries can play in climate financing. In closing, I would like to conclude with a final key message. The G7 comprises over 50% of global wealth, but only 10% of global population. Many of the issues discussed in this summit, from climate change to loss of biodiversity, are largely the result of the industrialization of G7 countries, and yet the effects fall overwhelmingly on the remaining 90% of the global population. It is therefore critical that we keep this in mind when addressing the role that the G7 and T7 can play in sustainable development and the 2030 agenda. Thank you, and I look forward to your comments and questions. Arigato gozaimashita.
Thank you very much, Tshilidzi, for your great speech. Many of people in this room do not know that United Nations University is headquartered in Tokyo, just a few subway stops away from here. And then its history is not so short. It's already 50 years old, 40-something already. And then the reason why you do know that is that, unfortunately, the United Nations University has been not so active. But so that's why our expectation for you is really, really big. And I already understand that you are the very transformative, dynamic rector, so very different from previous persons. So I'm sorry to say, but that really, really welcome to this think tank community and the G7, G20 community. And then actually, your country, South Africa, will be the host of G20 next year, right? And then there will be T20 there. And then you are from the university. He was vice chancellor for University of Johannesburg, right? So his colleagues will lead T20 2 years later. And then the preparation must start from today. So with this background, so please ask some questions to him. Okay, the gentleman there, and Sachin and Abra, and then Anika. Then, and then.
Good morning. My name is Nanda Kumar. I am from the Institute for Global Environmental Strategies. And thank you, Speaker, for a very illuminating speech. My question is that in September 2021, the UN Security Council has released a press note which says that the Council is opening the debate on climate and security. I'm keen to know the progress happening in this regard and what kind of practical actions the Security Council can take to address climate change? Thank you.
Thank you. And then Sachin, and then Abra.
Thanks, Professor Marwala, for excellent talk today. I just wanted to ask you, in your own domain of artificial intelligence, how you see the role of Global South in terms of both the G20 platforms and also the Science Forum, which next week UN would be hosting. So from that perspective, the ability of the Global South to leverage the strength, the trends, and the opportunities with AI, and their ability to bring in governance, not only for AI, but technology in general. Thank you.
Abra.
Yes, thank you very much for your talk. My name is Abla Abdul Latif. I'm from the Egyptian Center for Economic Studies. You talked about reforming the global financial architecture. Okay, and there is a lot of talk about that, the reform to the benefit of the developing countries. And I want to ask about the how question. How to go about that, given that the financial institutions are all controlled by the bigger countries, the richer countries, who do not necessarily have an interest in supporting the developing countries. So how do you suggest this reform to take place within the existing economic system? Thank you.
Finally, the Stormy Anika.
Thank you very much. I'm Stormy Mildner from the Aspen Institute in Berlin. Thank you very much for your insightful presentation. You mentioned multilateralism, you mentioned effectiveness. One of the ways to ensure effectiveness is also through accountability and holding those who make the decisions accountable for what they decided on. So one of the recommendations of the T7 is introducing scorecards for what the G7 does, what the G20 does, and maybe also what other multilateral institutions do. So I wanted to ask you, what role for the UN and the university in maybe implementing such a scorecard, and what would you put as criteria onto such a scorecard?
Thank you very much. So, Tshilidzi, so please respond to at least one.
Okay, no thanks. I mean, on the issue of the UN Security Council and sustainable development, I think one thing that I would like to put forward is that sustainable development is for all of us to do. All of us must be involved. But one thing that is a necessary condition for sustainable development is peace and security. We see what the war in Ukraine has done in the global value chain of grain. You know, conflicts easily become, food security issues and other security issues. So what I would expect from the UN Security Council is obviously to, of course, I think it should be reformed to have much more permanent members, but really is to create a peaceful environment. Then the second thing on AI, very, very important that AI must not only be a tool for the global north, it should also be in the global south. So the issues of, ensuring that we don't have digital minorities is very, very crucial. Because if you have digital minorities, it means that those face recognition and ultimately, when it is used in medical, it will absolutely be more effective on the digital majority because the AI system will have been trained with data that comes from that part of the world, and then will leave the people from the global south behind. So what can be done is to ensure that we are in all conversations, everybody is in all conversations, and that, and of course, United Nations is at the moment developing a global digital compact, and so on and so forth. Okay. Thank you. And then if I come to the issue of global finance, difficult issue, but I think we need to include much more voices from the global south in decision-making aspects of the global finance. But it's a difficult issue, and it is going to be a journey that we will have to deal with going into the future. On the issue of the scorecard on effective multilateralism, now I think the United Nations University would like to be a partner to that. And Professor Yamaguchi, who is here, maybe if you could stand so that you can be seen, would be quite critical so that we can create such links. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I forgot to tell you that Tshilidzi is a real expert in AI. So he's a PhD in AI. So thank you very much. And he just assumed his position just a month ago, but he is visiting more than 10, 12, 13 UN university organizations in the world within 2 months. So good luck in your journey. Okay. Thank you very much. So yeah, we will have how many minutes? 5 minutes break, and then start the panel discussion. Thank you very much.